Good morning. Happy Monday. Yes, I'm running late today. I was trying to get the various pieces I wanted to share with you today organized. And it took longer than I was thinking it was going to take. So here we are. So we'll give it a minute for everybody to pop on. And we've got some interesting stuff to talk about today. Starting with loneliness. Welcome to whomever just popped on. Glad you're here. Oh, we've jumped to 3. Good morning, Beth. Good morning. Glad you are here. And the other 2 names aren't rolling yet, but as we get going here, I'm sure more names will roll. And some of your names will roll multiple times because Facebook's just like that. And I choose to believe. Good morning, Carolyn. Glad you are here. Good morning, Abigail. Welcome. Hello, Nancy. Glad you're here. Everybody's starting to roll in. And Beth, your name just rolled twice. So I choose to believe that when someone's name rolls multiple times, there's something really good in this message for them. So let's see what you all think of this message. But as always, let's start with a little tapping and a little breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Barb. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just settling into right here, right now. Grounding yourself through your feet and the base of your spine into Mother Earth. And spinning open your crown chakra, taking in healing golden light, allowing the universe to support us and guide us. So I have 2 things I want to share today. They'll meld together. One is a card from the Wild Offering deck. Good morning, Gwen. Glad you're here. Wild Offering, Tosha Silver. And then I want to read a little bit out of Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. Good morning, Mel. Welcome. Medicine and what matters in the end. And I think this, even though it's an older book, speaks to where we're heading right now. So we all know that one of the biggest epidemics in our country right now is loneliness. We're not doing a great job of taking care of people's physical needs, and we certainly are not doing a good job of taking care of their mental, emotional, spiritual needs. So we'll read the card, but then it just kind of popped in my head that there's some pieces out of Being Mortal that'll be helpful with this as well. So I want you to listen from a couple of perspectives here, and you can add as many perspectives as you want because you know we're moving toward multidimensionality. So, but one perspective is with regard to yourself. How do any of the words that I'm going to say today resonate for you personally? And then listen with a part of yourself that's attentive to how does this fit for the greater good? So we'll start with the loneliness part and then we'll go from there. Loneliness. When you stop fearing your aloneness, you stop settling for less than you deserve. May I embrace and love my solitude. And that's when kindred spirits can finally come. Now, again, from a multidimensional perspective, it is not just dependency or fierce independency. There's all kinds of waysides along the way there. And there's ways within whatever you choose to have it ebb and flow, depending on where you're at a particular time in your life, or even a particular day or a particular moment. The more flexibility we can build into the systems that are meant to sustain and support us, the better off we're going to be. Now, whether those systems are maintained by us as individuals, or maintained by a small group around us, or maintained by the various levels of government, remains to be seen. But the idea that we can make the systems more flexible, because they don't work for everybody. And right now, many of them aren't working for anybody. So I think it's interesting to ponder what's been tried and where things go from there. So let's see. Yes. First thing I want to start with, if you have the book, and interesting, I'm going to start with page 111. How's that for kind of interesting? So this was 1991. This was back when my kids were little babies. The gist of it was this very young physician was no power backhoe in the yard all night. Oh, good Lord. Good grief, girlfriend. Well, take from the message what's useful for you, and we'll run with it. You've been having a lot of things lately. What's the message? Anywho, this physician, his name was Bill Thomas, probably is still Bill Thomas because he was young then, so he's probably middle-aged now. But when he finished up his residency, good morning, Maureen, glad you're here, he went to work in a nursing home. He was going to be the director of nursing, or not the director of nursing, but the director of the nursing home. And he came in with some wild-ass changes that everybody thought he was nuts. And the only reason they went along with it was because they figured he wasn't going to get the grant to actually do this. He did. So it was a nursing home. Your typical, what my parents' generation thinks of as the home. Don't put me in the home, which is long hallways, institutional, lined with wheelchairs, people dozing in wheelchairs. That's basically what their image of the home was. So what he decided to do was he said there was no life there. So obviously anyone who was still somewhat cognizant was going to be very lonely in this place because they were doing institutional care. It's not, how are you today? Let's have a conversation. What do you remember, tell me about when you were in the Navy, yada, yada, yada. It was, did you take your pills? Let me look in your mouth, make sure the pills went down when they gave them to you, blah, 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 right? So his idea was, let's make it more like really living. So he tore up part of the lawn and put in garden. He brought in 2 dogs. It was a 2-story building, so a dog for each floor. He brought in 4 cats, 2 for each floor. He brought in 100 parakeets, and every guest got a parakeet or 2. And the results were phenomenal. People came out of their shells. People who hadn't spoken in years started talking. People who were no longer ambulatory began to walk again. Well, the dog needs to go out and go to the bathroom. I'll take the dog out to go to the bathroom. It gave people purpose. Purpose, purpose, purpose. Purpose is so important. How do we keep people living a purpose? Many of us, and I know I've been guilty of this too, have been attempting to, like with my dad, clip his wings somewhat because he does dangerous stuff. He climbs on ladders. He carries motors downstairs. He, does all these things where I'm going, oh my God in heaven, because I'm likely to be the one who's going to find him when he falls. Nonetheless, those are the things that give meaning to his life. So how do we accommodate keeping people having value, feeling valuable, in this process? Interesting too, this doctor's story. I'm going to read just a part of this. So it talked about all the things that he was a great sales person as a kid. Anytime they had the Boy Scouts going out selling stuff or whatever, he always won the contests, which is why he got the grant for the stuff that he was wanting to do, because he's a smooth talker. He can get things to happen. Here, I like this part. At the same time, he was a terrible student. He had miserable grades and repeated run-ins with his teachers over his failure to do the work they assigned. It wasn't that he couldn't do the work. He was a voracious reader, the kind of boy who would teach himself trigonometry so he could build a boat, which he did. He just didn't care about doing the work his teachers asked for, and he didn't hesitate to tell them so. Today, we diagnose him as having oppositional defiant disorder. In the 1970s, they just thought he was trouble. So, these two personas, the salesman and the defiant pain in the neck, seem to come from that same place. So, move ahead, he becomes this person who brings in this radical new way of doing nursing home, and people came to life. The book also talks about the woman who began assisted living. And it was for her father, and she franchised the model and then became very upset as those who adopted the model began to water it down. Because the parts that they were watering down, yes, absolutely, we all need purpose. And our country has done a not great job, especially with elderly, of allowing them their purpose. Because it does get to be a pain in the neck. It's more work for those around people to support them doing the things they want to do. But if we did the mindset shift of not my job is to keep you safe, but my job is to keep you busy, happy, doing the things you love to do, employed in a way, right? So, I thought that stuff was very interesting. Anyway, the woman who started assisted living ended up selling the whole thing off in disgust because it didn't stay what she wanted it to be. She wanted it to be a vital, vibrant kind of a thing that was an answer to nursing homes, not a step on the way to nursing homes like we do it right now. So, there's another little part here on page 128 that I want to read just to spark some conversation among us all. And Gwen the other day said that she was working on her plans for her death and dying. Fabulous, fabulous. We all need to be doing that. What do you want? What don't you want? And don't make people promise that they're going to keep you at home until you die, because sometimes that just isn't possible. But it might be wise to ask them to work with you as you get older to keep you having a sense of purpose. Say to them, I'm less concerned about safety. I'm more concerned about having a purpose. So here's another part that I thought was very helpful. The problem with medicine and with the institutions it has spawned for the care of the sick and the old is not that they have an incorrect view of what makes life significant. The problem is they have almost no view at all. Medicine's focus is narrow. Medical professionals concentrate on repair of health, not sustenance of the soul. If one of you could put that line in our feed, I think that captures the whole thing. Medical professionals concentrate on repair of health, not sustenance of the soul. And think about that. If what's more important is purpose than safety, it's totally backwards. It's totally backwards. Medical professionals concentrate on repair of health, not sustenance of the soul. Yet, and this is the painful paradox, we have decided that they should be the ones who largely define how we live in our waning days. For more than a half century now, we have treated the trials of sickness, aging, and mortality as medical concerns. It's been an experiment in social engineering, putting our fates in the hands of people valued more for their technical prowess than for their understanding of human needs. That experiment has failed. If safety and protection were all we sought in life, perhaps we could conclude differently. But since we seek a life of worth and purpose, and yet are routinely denied the conditions that might make it possible, there is no other way to see what modern society has done. So, that's one of the reasons why I keep fueling the light of the concept of pocket neighborhoods and intentional communities and cohabiting arrangements. When you bring a group of people together, and there's another part in here that talks about an experiment where one of the institutions had like 100 people, but they broke them up into pods, families of 16 people each. And within that family, you operated in kind of an open concept. And that actually fits with what started my journey on this whole road of intentional living. Was many years ago, I had a dream from which I awoke with a smile on my face. I called it Octopus House. It was a central hub that had a reading nook and a dining space and a lovely kitchen that everyone could share, and great big windows to look out, and a labyrinth outside, and all this, and then spokes coming out from it. And each spoke was an apartment for 1 or 2 people, however many they wanted. And so there was common area that through which people would go to pick up their mail, to wash their clothes, to have a meal, to go to a doctor appointment, etc., etc. Which statement? Say it again. Oh, the one that, yes. Let me grab it again. Go on. Thank you. Let's see. It was right here. Let's see. I believe it was on this page. Let's see. Where is it going? Medical professionals concentrate on repair of health, not sustenance of the soul. So again, having a place that's set up for this kind of communication. If you have to go to the central hub for your mail, you're likely to run across somebody and have a conversation. What's that going to do to loneliness? If you're at a place where it's set up in pods and there's 16 people in a pod and these are the people that you spend the most time with, what's likely to happen with that? You're less lonely. You're less lonely. Are we going to run into the typical stuff that people who live together run into? He leaves the crumbs on the counter. She doesn't do this. He doesn't put the toilet seat down, blah, blah, blah. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why I like the concept of dynamic self-governance. When you have a system where people will sit at the table and let's have a conversation about the pet policy. Jane, you're not picking up after your dog. And there's an organized process for discussing that. Dynamic self-governance, also known as sociocracy. There's a website, Sociocracy for All, and they have tons of trainings on how this process works. So you're not voting. That way you don't have winners and losers and people who aren't on board. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's such a good statement, isn't it? It's such a good statement. So what's our target going to be? Target, there's the war language. The sustenance of the soul. I need a t-shirt. I'm here for sustenance of the soul. Let's see, what else could we do? My values include sustenance of the soul. Throw some in the feed. What comes to mind? What comes to mind? But can you imagine if this were what we had to look forward to as we age? Maybe it wouldn't be such a daunting thing. Maybe we wouldn't pretend it doesn't happen. La, 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 la. So, and again, certainly I think this is the stuff that will address this epidemic of loneliness going on. A single person in their 90s living in a house with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. What's the point? Good morning, Diane. And yes, there may be some people who are perfectly capable of doing that and still very active in their community, their church, whatever, their neighborhood, whatever. Fabulous. But there's far more people who are sitting alone in those big houses, believing there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, there's no one to connect with. Life is nothing without sustenance of the soul. So how do we begin to be the sussers of sustenance of the soul? I love it. I love it. I love it. So there's 7 of you on here and me, our magic number 8. Somewhere today, I'd like you to augment either your own and or someone else's sustenance of the soul. Feed someone's soul. That's your mission for today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Let's create a revolution. Bye-bye.